Hey everyone, my name is Richard Gaspard. I'm the product specialist for PreSonus. And tonight we're going to be talking about Studio One. We're going to do some general overview of how Studio One works, some recording techniques, some things that are really going to show just how easy it is and how quick it is to get from having an idea and then getting it into the computer and doing what you have to do to create a finished product. Like I said, I'm the product specialist for PreSonus. I've been with PreSonus for 6 years. Did a lot of TV and film stuff before that, a lot of live broadcast mixing. I was a church media director for 14 years. So I'm a bass player, arranger, producer, and all of that. So let's go ahead and get started. As you can all see, this is Studio One, and I'm using Studio One Pro. This is 6.5. This version just came out a couple of weeks ago, and so I really want to have something that's going to be a little bit for everyone. So for the folks who are beginners, we're just going to talk about like the simplicity and all of that and things that you can do. But the guys who are a little more advanced, we're gonna show you some stuff later on that's going to show you like some real power moves that Studio One does. That no one else does in this way. And keep in mind, just as I said to the camera, you know, the idea behind how we developed Studio One, and this is really all of our products really, is letting the hardcore technical stuff be out of your way so that we created the shortest distance possible between having the idea and getting it completed. So you got the idea, you can put it down, and then you're ready to mix and you're ready to produce something to hand it off to the next person or you know, your final medium or whatever. So kind of keep that in mind as I go through this. So this is the main page in Studio One when you launch it. You can see we have 3 panes right here. The first one is just all of our files, our songs, our projects, our shows. Projects and shows are unique to Studio One Pro. Projects is simply just doing mastering. So I can mix an entire record, import those songs into a projects page, do mastering as a whole, and output my whole project that way. Shows, much like a certain other DAW that was mentioned earlier you can do a lot of live performances with. We have our show page, and this is you could take finished mixes, add it in with live instruments in a live scenario, and do like live shows with it. So we're not going to really cover that a whole lot. We're really going to talk more about the recording process. The center section here is your artist profile. If I had a picture of myself, I could put it there. I haven't. If you got a SoundCloud account, you can just export your stuff straight to SoundCloud. And then over here on the news feed, if I was connected to the internet, you would see it's just kind of like everything that is happening right now in the Studio One world. So a news feed that goes here. And then in addition to that, you can download demos of songs that others have submitted to us that we use as demos. And so you can really see what other folks have done, how, you know, what their processes were, the things that they did. But it's not just that. If you see the song, a demo song, and you like the way maybe they did something to a lead vocal or a background vocal or a set of background vocals, you can go to that effects chain and you can save it, and then you can use it on your own projects. So it's not just see what we did, it's a see what we did and steal it for yourself later, right? So that's kind of that's one of the things that the demos that you can download. So I'm using a Studio 24C. This is just a 2-channel in, 2-channel out. It's got a headphone out, and you can see I'm using in-ears, and I'm going to do some stuff with that a little bit later. But so one of the benefits about how PreSonus makes hardware and software is that we make them to talk to each other seamlessly. Now, Studio One will work with any interface on the planet, and our interfaces will work with any DAW on the planet. But when you have them together, because we make the hardware, we make the software, they seamlessly integrate. So my Studio One application already knows that I'm using a Studio 24C. So Let's say we're ready to record. Let's just say I'm a singer-songwriter, right? So got an acoustic guitar and I'm a vocalist. So I've got a microphone and I've got my guitar and I'm ready to roll. For this purpose, today I'm going to use one of my basses and I've got that plugged into channel 2 and I've got this microphone plugged into channel 1. So there's going to be a little pretend here, but you kind of get the picture. If I were ready, this was an acoustic guitar ready to roll, I would click New. I would scroll down here to PreSonus interfaces and notice it says Studio 2.4. That's the older version. This is the USB-C version. We didn't change it in here because people still have this one, and these folks who have this know that's the same thing. So when I click OK, it's going to open up a session. Input 1 is already patched and armed. Input 2 is already patched and armed, and I literally hit record and I start with my ideas. So in another software with another interface, you would have to map that all out. You would have to tell the interface that you're wanting to have this go to this track and then the software and all of that. But because we make both of them to seamlessly just work together. So just a very, very, again, that real short line between having an idea and getting it into the computer. I'm an old guy, so I might use the phrase, put it onto tape. Thank you for identifying with me. Those are practically interchangeable these days. When I say get it on tape, don't go, no one's using tape in here. This is a hard drive. What? Hello, 1987. So just, suffice it to say, I might say tape, but I mean, get it down into the computer. Okay, so that would be that scenario. We're going to step away from this, and I'm actually going to do some recording here, but I just wanted you to see that. I'm going to do some things where we're going to record things one by one. But I wanted to show you this. In a lot of other scenarios, if I had a session open and I wanted to go to another song, it would be only a matter of time if I kept that session open and I opened up another couple of sessions that my computer's resources would be tapped out. Studio One, when you go to a new session or another session that you want to open, it takes the current one here and all the ones that you would have open, and it pushes them very, very far into the background to where they eat up no CPU. So I can have 10 sessions that are technically open. They're just being put way, way in the background. And you're going to see this. We're going to open up several things tonight, and nothing's going to cough. Now, this is a pretty new MacBook Pro. It's an M2, but I've done this demo tons of times with a 2015 MacBook Pro. So, it's not the computer, it's the software. So I go here, which is our start page, and we're just starting again. So I'm going to go new, and we're just going to do record and mix. So this is just going to be a blank session. This has nothing in it, no routing or anything like that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put a drum track, and I want to do this at like 80 beats a minute. So now we've got something that's going to be, let's see, we got our metronome. Now I have this set up where I've got that eighth note click. I can turn the eighth notes down where it's just 2, 3, 4, but I'm going to give myself a little bit of that, the subdivisions in there. So I'm going to put a drum track on this. Now I can do this note data stuff in a variety of ways. I'm going to do a little bit here with our Atom. This is our pad controller. By itself with any DAW, it's a pad controller. You can put MIDI notes in, but with Studio One, this becomes a full Studio One controller. So I can manage an entire session with an Atom. Atom comes with Studio One Artist, as does this, Studio One Artist. And remember, almost everything I'm going to do tonight, with the exception of a few things, and I'll tell you hopefully I'll remember to tell you what is Pro and what is Artist, but those both come with Studio One Artist. So all I have to do is, if I go to my instruments, I'm going to look for, Impact XT, which you see it looks a lot like the Atom here. It's our it's our drum module. So I'm going to just grab this. It's just called Easy Kit. It's just a basic drum set. Now watch this. I don't have to set anything up. I don't have to do any routing or anything. Studio One has a very much of a drag and drop workflow. So I'm literally just going to grab Easy Kit and drag it anywhere here into my arrange window, and I've got my track ready to go. So kick, snare, hat. Okay, so I'm only going to do the kick and the snare set to click, and I'm going to show you a couple of other things. So that's impact, and I'm going to do it from the atom. I'm just going to start a loop here, measure 2, and I'm going to make a 4-measure loop. So that's 1 measure, 2 measures, 3 measures, 4 measures, and I'm going to turn on my loop. And so when I record this, this is just going to loop forever until I tell it to stop. This is, you know, standard putting things in, right? So I'll hit record, but before doing that, I'm going to turn this on. This is going to give me a 4 count before it starts. So you're about to hear some really bad drumming, but just bear with me. Here we go. 2, 3, 4, kick. Now do the snare. Okay, you heard me get off tempo, right? I told you it was going to be bad. I'm not a drummer. I'm, you know, not in the least sense of the word. But I put this in. It's not rhythmically perfect. I can do a quantize. So right now it's set for 16th notes. I'm going to change it to 8th notes. Now watch what happens. So I didn't say this earlier, but I'm going to show you this in a second. I drug the instrument in to make a track. I'll make a track in another way that I'm going to show you, and Studio One uses just a number of hotkeys that make things really, really easy. So I'm going to quantize this, and so instead of having to go through a bunch of menus to get to it, I'm just going to hit the Q key, Q for quantize. Now when I hit the Q key, you can see the dots and dashes there. And let me blow this up a little bit to where you can really kind of see it. Open it up this way. Now, when I hit the Q key, you're going to see them all shift into position, and it's going to be perfectly aligned. So here we go and go. You saw them all kind of move. So now, right, I just became a lot better drummer because I let the application fix it for me. Now, if I double click this region here, this is all the notes that I've played. I can look at this as a piano roll, but that's the entire piano roll, and MIDI and 60. We don't need to see all of them. We don't need to see all 88 notes because we're only using 16. So I go to my drum editor, and that's the 16 pads that are here, right? So I want to add hi-hat, which is here. But if I turn this quantize into 8th notes, and I go to my little paint tool here, I can start here on the very first beat of bar 1, and remember that's my hi-hat closed. If I just click and drag it across, I now have 8th notes all the way across this loop. And all perfectly in sync. Forever and ever and ever. So I just created a basic little drum track. And we're not going to go too much farther into this. I want to show you one other thing. Not only does it make a drum track here, but it gives all of the pads that are being used their own channel. So you can see the kick is there, the snare is there, and the hi-hat is there. Let's say I don't want it to be super dry. I want to put a reverb effect on this. Well, in a lot of other scenarios, I would have to create some sort of reverb bus and then put something, a reverb in that bus. I'd have to create some sort of send bus, put a reverb in that bus, and all of that. Studio One does it a little bit differently. So if I go to my effects and I go to my reverb, and you see there's a ton of effects that come in Studio One. So here, room reverb, let's just say I want to put them in I want to put the drums in a concert hall. See, I've got inserts and sends. Inserts puts it on the channel itself. A send is meant to be sent to a bus, and then it's put in it there, and then you can pull up all of the reverb or all of the effect as one thing, right? So I will click on the first one, shift and click on the third one, grab my, what did I say? Cathedral, cold cellar, what did I say? Concert hall? Concert hall. I'm going to drag it across to the sends, and there's my concert hall reverb. It pops up. I'll close it. But notice I got a -6 level on each thing sent to this bus with the room reverb in it, and I've got volume control over the reverb. So let's play that. Obviously, I'm not going to have that much reverb on the kick drum, so I just select this here. I'm sorry. I just select this here. I got to do it one at a time. Might have overdone it. I can pull the reverb by itself down. Go in. Start to kind of make it not so fluttery, you know, and then like that, you know, kind of wash it out a little bit. So I just quickly created, you know, a reverb bus, and I just highlighted the 3, dragged it to it, you know, and Studio One made it for me. I didn't have to make that. Again, the theme there, the quickest way to get to a finished product, right? So now let's add a bass track to this. So I'm going to add another track, and the way I'm gonna do this, I could come up here and go track, add tracks, but notice that little key there. So if quantize was Q, adding a track is going to be the T key. So I'm going to add the T key, and I'm going to hit the T key. I'm going to add a track. I can choose to do an audio track, an instrument track, which is what we just made, an automation track, which we're not going to mess with, but basically I can automate a bunch of things with this one track. A folder track would be if I had something like a large drum set, kick in, kick out, snare, top, snare, bottom, hi-hat, overhead left, overhead right, tom 1, 2, 3. I could create what's called a folder track that would have, I could put all of those drums in it, and then so instead of having 10 tracks open, I could just close the folder and it would just be there. So like if I'm wanting to work on something else, I can just kind of hide the drums. Or like if I've got like 8 background vocals or something, I could just hide them and work on my other stuff instead of having just a boatload of tracks open all the time. So that's what folder tracks is. So audio, and so we're just going to call it bass. I'm plugged into the right input of this interface, and when I click OK, there I've got a bass, and I'm gonna go ahead and put a bass track on this. So I flew here Sunday from Louisiana. Pardon online if you hear some noise on the lav mic. So there's my bass. If I arm the track here, you can see it. So having flown here, you know, I detuned and all of that. So you get in a scenario where, you know, you don't have your tuner, no big deal. We can drop a tuner into our channel here. So if I go to my mix window and my browser, and on my effects, I've got a tuner. So over here, you think of these as your output channels. This is after they've come into the computer and they're going out to be mixed, but I can also see my input channels. So this is the stuff, input is what's coming from this into the computer, output is from the computer back to the interface for us to hear it. Does that make sense? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a tuner on the input side of my bass input, and now I've got a guitar tuner that I can just do my stuff here. So if your guitar player forgets his tuner because he's a guitar player, no offense, guitar players, total offense to guitar players, you know, and this bass actually stays in a really great tune, apparently, unless you fly with it. And it's been kind of finicky since then, but I can literally tune it when I've got it at home in a controlled environment. It stays in tune for weeks. Let's check that harmonic. All right, so I've got a tuner that's dropped in there. So you can hear, and I don't have it very loud, but you can hear that. This bass is kind of nasally sounding. I've got a Fender Precision, I've got a Fender Jazz. They're much more, they got more of a rounder sound. This is kind of nasally. I can record this just as it is and then manipulate it later, or I can do what's called printing. I can put an equalizer on this now, and then I've got that sound throughout the recording. Back in the day, we used to put effects a lot of times, especially compression and EQ, on a channel before we recorded it, and then you had it in the mix, and then you could kind of manipulate from there. The downside of that is you were married to it. The upside to it, when you had a bunch of things that you had to physically patch in, like outboard gear that got expensive quick, you the upside was that you could use that outboard gear for something else, right? So I'm just going to drop an EQ on this bass, and I'm just going to do something just simple. So there again on my inserts, now I've got an EQ. I'm just going to take a little bit of the low frequencies up. I'm going to take some of the mids kind of out and bring it down where I know it's a little nasally, and then we'll just take some high frequencies. So you're going to hear the difference. See, it's a little rounder. It's still kind of nasally, and for sake of time, I'm not going to really like tweak it very hard. But so you can hear it's definitely different. You kind of hear a little more of the nasally stuff that way. I mean, I can kind of do a little bit more. Right, so let's go ahead and cut a bass part. So I've got my loop here. Now, I know what I want to do in my form is going to be longer than what's here. This is 4 measures. I'm actually going to do a form that's going to be a lot longer than this. So I want to take this and make it longer. In a lot of scenarios and a lot of other DAWs, I would do a copy-paste, but there are some scenarios out there where if I did a copy-paste just where this cursor is, you see we're like barely a quarter of the way through bar 4 here, it would paste the new loop right where that cursor is, which means I would have to make sure that my cursor is here for it to drop it in the right spot. Otherwise, if I have it over here, I've got some oddball 1 1/4 measures to another 4 measures, right? In Studio One, we do what's called a duplicate. So gold star, if you can guess what key I'm going to hit for a duplicate.
D.
Yes, gold star. So I'm just going to hit D, and I can do this forever. Or let's just say I've got these here, and I want to do all of them together. I highlight all of them and hit D, and now I've got this giant drum track. All right, so I'm going to turn off this loop because I'm not sure how long this is going to be, but if I go back here, I've got my bass. And let's go ahead and put a bass track on this. Remember, I'm giving myself a little pre-count, so I'm going to cut a little part. We're going to do this in the key of C. You guys ever know the Nashville number system? 1, 4, 5, whatever. I'll call out the numbers, and I'll call out the chords that I'm going to frame up here with my bass line. All right, so I'm going to start on the 1. I'm going to do 1. 4, which is F, back to the C, which is the 1, back to the 4, gonna shake it up and go to 6, which is A minor, back to 4, to the 1, to the 5. And that's gonna be my whole loop here. So I'm gonna open this up, I'm gonna trim this back to be right on the money there. So that's my bass line. Now, I'm an okay bass player. I've been doing this a long time, but I want to make this better in time than what I played. Now remember, we quantized the note data stuff that we programmed. That's one thing, really easy to do. But then quantizing recorded audio is like a whole other thing. I mean, there's a lot more coding that goes in it. But again, I can do it in Studio One by highlighting the track and hitting the Q key. You'll see it move a little bit. I played it pretty solid, but you'll see it move a little bit. So it's going to give you a bunch of lines that's marking, and then it's going to move the notes. So here we go, quantize, boom. Now it's going to be pretty solid in there. Right? Okay, so, and I want to make this twice the length it is, so I'm just going to duplicate it. So we've got a drum track, we got a bass track. Let's add a guitar part to this. So again, I'm just going to hit the T key, and we'll just call this GTR. Remember, I'm still plugged into the same, I didn't hit input 2, there I am. Remember, I'm plugged into this same input here, so I still have my tuner and I still got this EQ, right? So let's just say I really don't want to have, if I happen to like touch something down here, I don't want to hear the lows, I can just put a low cut filter on that and just kind of get it out. And I'm just going to cut something like that through the first loop here, and then we'll duplicate it as well. So here we go. 2, 3, 4. Positions, we can go to the 5 chord. And then there's my loop point. And I'm going to drag that back to the loop. And then we're going to duplicate it. But you see how that's not as loud as this is. This is a larger waveform than this is. When I click on this and it's highlighted, see that little box right there? I can click and drag that box and change the gain. So notice I didn't change this. This represents the fader level. You can see there's the fader level for the mixer. When I move it here, it's going to move the fader. That's not what I'm doing. I'm like on the top of a mixing board, the gain knob, that's what I'm doing. I'm making the waveform actually louder. And I can set this to be 16th notes and quantize it as well. I played it a little more triplety, so it's kind of, you know, making it a little less triplety on the 16th notes. But so I'm just going to undo this, and we're just going to duplicate it, and that's my form. If I were doing this as a real tune, first of all, I would have played it better, and I would have made sure I was in tune, and I probably would have had a guitar. But then I would also record it again, and then pan it left and right to have a thicker guitar sound. And it's not, a lot of people think doubling for something like this is you just take it and you copy it to a new track. That's not doubling, that's just making it twice as loud. It's the inconsistency with which humans play is what gives you the thick doubling in like in a guitar track or whatever. It's the same thing. Violinists, one violin playing by themselves sounds pretty good. Two next to each other, not so much. Add in the third one and it starts to sound like, you know, a string section. Then you keep doing that, even though it's the same person. You record them 10 times, and now you've got like, you know, a whole violin set. So it's the inconsistencies with which you play is what creates that texture. I'm not going to do this to save time. We're gonna move on. So I've got drums, bass, and guitar. So I've got an idea now. I want to add something in here that's going to be a little melodic thing, but I'm tired of hearing this. But I play this, so I'm going to create something. Now this is what I'm about to do. Is you can do this in Pro, you can do this in Artist. It comes with a 30-day license to an application called Melodyne, which is a vocal tuning application. Pro comes with Melodyne Essentials, and it's editing one note at a time. What's the Melodyne? Studio. Melodyne Studio lets you do like multiple. It's polyphonic. Essentials is one note at a time. So I've got a little melodic idea. So over that, you know, the one I'm hearing. Right? And then over the 5 chord, right? You can hear the chord in that. That's the 1 and the 4. It becomes a 4 major 7, and then the 5 chord is it. Right, so I'm gonna play that, and then we're gonna bring it into Melodyne, and we're gonna do some things to this. So remember, I'm gonna hit the T key. I'm gonna choose the input right channel, and we're just gonna call this idea. So I'm ready to roll. Now, if I were playing this as a melodic instrument, I might do. Right? But I want it to, I'm going to eventually try to do this as like a bell sound. And you know, you don't hear bells doing that. So I'm going to attempt to play this as cleanly as possible. Right? So let's try this. 2, 3, 4. That's all I'm going to do. And we're going to fix our length. I'm not really concerned with the volume because of what we're about to do, but let's go ahead and pick it up. So there's my musical idea that I want to build upon. So I'm going to click it. I'm going to quantize it, lock it in. Now I'm going to bring this into Melodyne. So in Studio One, I just make sure it's highlighted and I hit Command M. And now I'm in Melodyne, which is a tuning application, a tuning plugin. You see, that's all of my notes. Melodyne calls them blobs. Excuse me. I'm going to click this here. I'm going to change my pitch center to be 100%. So this is going to lock it in. I'm also going to change my pitch drift to 100%. And this is going to get rid of any vibrato that I might have done. I tried not to do it, but if I would have left it at 0, it would have left the vibrato in there. But because I want to do something else, I want to make sure that's all gone. So that's that. Notice, though, when I opened Melodyne, see these little dots and dashes here? Almost kind of like what we're seeing up here. Can y'all see that? So Melodyne is a tuning application in that, you know, I can take pitches and you know, tune them to be the perfect tones that they need to be. But it's also a MIDI note data extraction tool. So Melodyne sees that I played E, G, E, C, G, E, C, E, G, E, C, and it assigned those notes MIDI note information. So what I can do with that is I can come over here to my browser and I can go to my instruments. I'm going to close Impact. And one of our other virtual instruments is called MIDI. And so I'm going to grab something. I said I wanted bells. And so let me just grab soft bell. Again, I'm going to drag it across here. Studio One's going to make a track for me. That might be a little more aggressive than what I want to hear. So let's just try Dynabell, see what that sounds like. Even more aggressive. I could just solo these things. I mean, like audition these different things. I'm sure I'm clicking the right. There we go. So I click and drag down. It doesn't bring the note, the audio notes in, it only brings in the note data. Now when I play this, I'm gonna mute the bass idea, and now we got bells. Pretty cool. Now I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna go ahead and copy it and paste it right next to it, because I'm gonna change this one to be and you see I had a grace note there, so I'm just gonna get rid of it. I'm sure it's showing up here. It's all meant to start with a rest. See, this started with a rest. This was just me not being a good bass player. And so I'm gonna take that out. But then there's the last one over the 5 chord. I don't want those 3s. I want to change those 3s to 2s. And I don't want this root up here. I want it to be the 7th. And I now have a complete bell part. And just as quick as that, right? Highlight them, duplicate them, and I've got my bell sound. Now, let's say I want to add a little more texture to this bell sound. Well, I can come back here to my browser, and let's say I want to do some other bell sound on it. Let's see what wood bell would sound like. Now, I can drag to this same track. When I let go, Studio One's going to ask me what it is that I'm really wanting to do here. Load means forget the original one and put this one on there. Combine means keep the original and add this one to it. And cancel means never mind, I'm just going to stay with the first one. So I'm going to combine them. Now you can see this was my first instance of MIDI, and this is my second instance of MIDI. I can click on this one, and look, I've got a fader here. I can mix them individually against each other. If I wanted to, I could come in and like put in a splitter. I could do like all sorts of things. Like I could add this splitter here, you know. Might be thinking of something else on actual audio, but splitter. Okay, so notice we've got this little note down here that's actually supposed to be the higher one. So I'm just going to grab them. And that's likely me fingering a note that I shouldn't have, but I'm just going to take that. Yeah. So I've got a bell sound, and so now you can see with a bass guitar, and I didn't even have to use the atom. I could have just written those notes in. I mean, we got something that's kind of sounding like an actual song, and it was all composed from this, but we're kind of doing the note data. So now let's take it to another level. We're going to add a little background vocal thing into this. So this may sound a little weird when I do this, but I'm going to put my in-ears in, and we're going to turn down the volume in here, so you're just going to have to listen to me singing ooh for a little bit. So, just bear with me on that. Let me plug in my ears. And the reason why I want to make it quiet in here is because I'm going to do some things that I want to show you, and I want it to be quiet in here because of what I'm going to do. I don't want there to be any other artifacts that's coming into the microphone. So I want to try to record it in as much silence as I can. All right, so let me just kind of get a check on my stuff here. Remember, I'm going to hit the T key, and I'm going to choose an audio file, and we'll just call this BGV, and I'm going to come into the left channel, click OK, and I'm going to arm my track. And this is my background vocal. Hello, hello, hello. You can see it's kind of weak. This type of microphone actually has a pretty low output, but no big deal, because if I go to my mixer, I can control the gain of my PreSonus interface from Studio One. So this is my manual input gain. That's analog, but then I've got another digital trim that I can take up with that. So actually, I'm going to go input left, and there is my input. Check 1, 2, 1, 2. Let me do this. Hello, hello, hello. 1, 2, 1, 2. Check 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, check, check. There I am. I'm going to turn this up so I can kind of hear myself a little bit better. Ooh. All right, here we go. Hang on. Check, check. There I am. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, check, check. Just want to make sure my headphone levels are right. Check, check, check. Okay. Here we go. So I was holding up my fingers to show you those are the chord tones that I'm singing. I'm singing the 3 to the 4, the 3 to the 4, or the E to the F, then the E to the D, or the 3 to the 2. I'm gonna pick up the volume a little bit here. Now, what I'm gonna do is we're gonna open this in Melodyne, which will be Command M. And the first thing I'm going to do here is we're just going to circle it, and we're just going to crank the tuning on it. I'm going to leave the pitch drift where we got some vibrato here. So that's my first background vocal. Pick up the volume a little bit on it. Okay, now I'm going to take it in. So I've done that. Now I'm just going to bounce this in Melodyne. I'm going to bounce it from Melodyne into audio again, so I just Command B. Now I'm going to take this, and I'm going to hold down the Option key, click it, and drag it down, and Studio makes a complete duplicate track out of it. Then I'm going to Command M, open this in Melodyne, and I'm going to take these E's, and what is now a half step above that, we're going to make it a whole step above that. And then this is the 5. We don't want that to go down to the 4. We want that to stay on the 5. So now I have this, which is 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 2. Now I have 5, 6, 5, 6, 5. let's bounce that. And then I'm going to grab this one, Option grab, bring it down, Command M, and I'm going to go the other direction, go down to the root, and these are now 2s or Ds. We're going to bring those to C, and then this is a whole step below. We're going to bring it to a B natural, not a B flat. So now I have a 3-part harmony background vocal. So I wouldn't use what I just did in a final product because, I don't know if you noticed, every one of them together had the same exact vibrato, which would sound very weird. Now, if I wanted to use this, I could cut the first one, like the 3 to 4 and the 5 to 6. I could cut 5 to 6 and move it to the second one, and cut the 1, 1 to 1 and move it to the third one. So my vibratos will be different. At that point, it's just quicker to sing it, right? But again, as an arranging tool, as something that I'm trying to put down some ideas kind of quick, I could take this and I could even do, like, instead of ooh, I could make this one like ooh, little jazz chords, and then put the 9th in there, or ooh. We got a major 7 to an F, that it becomes an F sharp 11, like all these different, kind of crazy chords. So I can just experiment with this without having to really know how to sing. I could have literally just sat here in silence and just gone, ooh, like I don't even know what note that is now. I haven't listened to this, but like that's probably some sort of a 5, but not in tune. I could have tuned it and then changed it and created this background vocal part. So again, we're just quickly being able to lay these ideas down. Now, if I were doing this for real, obviously I would double this, I wouldn't just have 1, 3, the background vocal, then another part, and then another part. I would double it and pan them across, and we'd have this giant choir, and then, then put their own reverbs and stuff. I kind of showed you how we would do that. So for the sake of time, I'll just keep moving on. So we've got this, and let's put a guitar solo on this. So I'm gonna grab my bass again, and we're gonna put like just a little solo on this. All right, so G key, call it solo. I'm not an all caps type of person. Okay, so there's my bass solo track. Let me just play a little bit of this, make sure I can hear myself. All right, so I'm going to do this on the second half of this, and hopefully I can play this in one take, and so we can keep moving on, and you don't have to sit here listening to me play bass all night. So this is the very end of the 5. So there's my solo. One taked it. Don't ever do that. I don't always do that. But you can see in some of the spots I laid into it kind of hard, and some of the spots I kind of laid back. When I go to mix this, it's going to be a little difficult because some of this is going to not really come through in the mix, and some of it won't. So I can use a compressor to correct some of that. So I'll come over here into my effects and go into a compressor. All I got to do is just drag the compressor across to this, and it puts it in there. I could do it there, or I could have done it here in the mixer. You can see solo, it put the compressor on the insert. So I'm going to do a couple of things that I want you to take a look at. I'm just going to set up a loop here, which is going to make it play over and over and over again until you all want to put a knife in my face. But I'm going to kind of show you this is what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to have the compressor, I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to pull this threshold back a little bit until I start to see some gain reduction happening. And by gain reduction, I'm meaning, so a compressor basically works in this way. I tell it where I want it to kick in. That's my threshold. So going in digital audio, going all the way to 0 would be the loudest I can make something. So this isn't, it's obviously not going all the way to 0. I don't even know where it's going, where it's hitting. And so I'm kind of doing it by sight. So let's just say the loudest piece in this is like somewhere around like -9. Well, I can set my threshold to be -9, and then I can set the amount of how much I want this to push it down, and that's my ratio. That's a compressor in a nutshell. It's a way more technical thing than that, but that's it in a nutshell. So what I don't want is, I don't want to compress it so much that these high points are getting hit really, really hard, while these low points are not getting hit at all. Right now, I'm going to be in that scenario. You can see we're not lighting up a lot of gain reduction to that other stuff that I played, but then the other parts, you can see that's hitting it a little bit harder, which is okay, because this is what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take this track, and we can do a couple of things with it to make the volume of it more consistent in addition to the compressor. Now, the old school way well, not old school, but the more beginner way to think about this is, well, I'll just put volume automation on it and I'll just increase the volume. But when you start to dig into plugins and things that you do to a signal, specifically a compressor as it pushes down on that waveform, on the audio, it changes the character of it a little bit, especially bass guitar. It makes it a little fatter. It makes it have a little bit more of a beefiness to it, maybe a little distorted, if you do it enough. And now we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because we don't have time to do it all. But if I were putting a compressor where you could see it was kicking in harder here, kicking in harder here, kicking in harder here, but not kicking in as much right here, I'm actually changing the way this bass solo sounds throughout the solo. So where I get on it a little bit harder, where it's louder, it's going to be compressed a little more, but this other stuff is not going to be compressed, so it's going to kind of sound wimpy. I can change the volume of it, and I've just made it louder. It's still wimpy sounding. It doesn't sound as aggressive as the stuff that's hitting harder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to alter the gain of the waveform to be more consistent throughout it. And I'm going to do that with a feature called clip gain. So think about fader automation, where I can put a node and turn the volume of something up. That's just the overall volume. But I'm going to put a node and I'm going to automate the gain, and I'm going to make the signal itself louder. So I'll show you how you do that. I'm going to go here. I'm going to control click and highlight gain envelope. Now notice, see, it put that line on there for me. So I'm just pinching to get this to be bigger. And let's say I didn't want this to be as loud as it was. I can come here and put these little nodes on here and just kind of make it softer. And let's say I want this to be louder. And let's say I hit these two grace notes here, the ghost notes, that I don't want. I'm just going to get rid of them, sort of. Obviously, you know, and my quantize, if I took it to 64th notes, it would snap a little bit tighter. Notice I just kind of muted that right there. So there's another note that was a little wimpy. I can grab it. I can come here and make it a little bit bigger. So that's going to hit the compressor the same way. These were all a little, I'm just going to do this kind of on the macro level so you can see I'm not going to like get surgical here, but you kind of see that, right? You know, see how that's louder, obviously louder. So that's all going to hit the compressor in a more even way so that when I'm ready to mix this, it's going to have the same consistent sound across because it's being treated on a track level the same way. It's not like slamming against the compressor and then it sounds kind of weak, but it's still loud, but it's weak, right? It's all going to have that same, so it's subtle. So that's something that I would do, and again, I would be way more surgical than this, but to save time, I just kind of wanted to show that to you. Okay, so moving on, I've got this bass solo, and let's just say it's just more along the lines of what I did right here, this idea, this you know that we had, but I wanted to be able to have this for somebody else to play. Let's just say it's a violinist, and I wanted this to actually be some sort of violin solo. Well, you know, I'm not a violinist, but I'm a bass player, and I can, you know, and I can play the melodic thing, and we just, you know, we got it down. Well, I can go back to Melodyne, I can Command M, and there it is. And I'm not going to go too deep into this, but let's just, you know, kind of fix any intonations, because I did some vibrato and stuff. This isn't going to be perfect because I played a lot more notes here. But let's assign this a string sound. So I'm going to go back to my instruments. I'm going to come down back to my tie. And so remember, all you got to do is just, you know, the drag and drop workflow with Studio One. There's my like a string sound. I'm just going to do that, and I'm going to drag the note data down, and now I've got a string. Of course, that was me gracing a note. So you know, I would have to fix this. I would have to fix my, you know, my playing. But I want to show this to you. This is really, really cool. This is brand new with Studio One 6.5. Notice earlier we talked about the piano roll, and that's when I fixed the ba-da-da-da-da-da, right? And we looked at the drum editor, which only shows me the notes that were played. We did that with the first thing I played from the Atom. Studio One 5, I think it was, added the score editor, which lets you see it as printed music. So if I had a violinist that I wanted to come and play this, I assigned a string sound, and now that is concert pitches for them to come in. That started with Studio One 5. We're on Studio One 6.5. We've taken it up a notch, several notches. I've got my strings here, but I can apply a staff preset. Let's just say I want to give it to a guitar player, but he doesn't read music. I've got a staff here, that's the notes, but a tablature under it. Or I could just change it from standard and tab to just tab. Or if he's playing in an alternate tuning, I can change this to DADGAD, D-A-D-G-A-D. And if he's playing in, he or she is playing in that tuning, I've got a tablature for them to read. If I wanted a trumpet player to play this, I would choose brass, trumpet. Remember, I'm in the key of C. That's going to change it to the key of D because a trumpet is a transposing instrument. So trumpet player could come in here and play it. If I wanted to change it to alto sax, which is an E flat instrument, it's like a minor third in one direction. I can't remember which one it is now. Alto sax player come in, or bari sax, come in here and play it. I've got it all written out sheet music wise, or I can do the tablature thing. Pretty cool, right? I mean, you know, I studied classical upright bass. I did a couple of seasons in an orchestra. String players aren't ear players. You can't, like a lot of them by and large, they read music, and they read music like monsters, but you can't just go up to them and go and expect you to play it back. Guitar player can, you know, by and large, because we play by ear a lot. But I can show them this, and they can nail it on the first try, right? So pretty cool stuff. So that's, in a nutshell, what I want to show you guys tonight. You know, as far as like some of the beginner things getting moving along. So let's talk about now some more really advanced stuff. And this is what our producer engineers are going to really latch on to. Not that, and I'm not saying this is going to go way over your heads, but I just want to show you this is some real power moves that we're about to do here. And this is Studio One Pro stuff. But very impressive, very cool to see. So if I am, let's look at this one. All right, I've got a band, and I'm producing them and engineering sessions and stuff, and they're on song number 3, and song number 1 was in the key of G, and their chord progression was G, D, E minor, C, G, D, E minor, C, or 1, 5, 6, 4. The Journey chords, right? Don't Stop Believing. Great. Song number 1, great. They do song number 2. The chords for song number 2 are E, B, C sharp minor, A. E, B, C sharp minor, A. It's 1, 5, 6, 4 in a different key. Song number 3, they have the audacity to show up with C, G, A minor, F. And I go, hang on a second, guys. Please don't tell me song number 4 is going to be this, because I'm gonna slit my throat. So we've got some stuff that we've recorded, and I'm ready to say, why don't we try something else? So we've got some tracks recorded. Let's take a listen to this. Well, let's play a little bit of the song first. Starts on a 4, and then it goes to the 1, and then the progression. So it starts on the 4.
16 years later, in this young lady speaking to a crowd
5,
who needed to see. She
2.
tried.
But hear that little note there? I put this little violin part in there, and I fat fingered it, but I left it in there to be able to show this. Right? To the 4. And then it does the progression again. So if we listen to this reference track, what is this? It's piano, it's an acoustic guitar strum, it's a tremolo, you hear the little wow 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 guitar. But we hear those chord progressions. If I click this and go to audio, detect chords, Studio One looks at it and tells me that we started on the 4, then we played a 1, a 5, a 2, and a 4, then a 1, a 5, a 2, and a 4. Then I'm going to drag it up here at the top. This is our tracks, global track visibility. These are all sort of things. Studio One 6 added some video stuff. We added lyric support and everything. We're not gonna go too much into that. We're not gonna go at all into that. But chord track is one of these things. So if I drag this up here, now all of the tracks are being looked at in relation to this chord progression. Notice this note data here, when we hit the E minor and I played that wacky note. I gotta unsolo this.
Needed to see, she
I fixed it. But that's note data, right? You saw how easy that was. You just changed the thing. But so Studio One told the violin part, you're playing a wrong note, and it fixed it. But now, this whole session is being seen through the light of this chord progression. So if I highlight everything, and I go back here and go audio, and apply chords from chord track, now it is seeing everything in context of those notes and all of the notes that are within each track. It's seeing all of that. And now if I'm gonna, I don't know why I'm hearing a buzz sound, both of them. Anyway, if I, let's say I got the one, let's just change this to, if I go, hey guys, instead of a 5, why don't we try a 5 minor? And instead of this 2 chord, why don't we do an actual 2 major chord? So when we hear it, what did I do? There we go. So we got the 1. All the C sharps become C naturals. To the 2. To the 4. Back to the 1. Back to the natural 5. All the G naturals become G sharps. So that's a radically different sound than a 2 minor, and I showed on the 2 to 5 and the 2 and the 5 chord. Yeah, I could do this with it. I can make this the key of D minor, and which would sound a lot different. We can go a minor third, a major third away in each direction before it starts to sound a little weird. But this is an arranging tool, just as the thing I did with Melodyne in the background vocals. This isn't meant to be something that you would actually do. This is something that you can literally grab an acoustic guitar and just play D, right? And then then Studio One will recognize that as D, and then just change the D to an E minor, then just change it to an A minor, then just try things, and you don't have to be like this incredible musician who can play all the chords and stuff. Just let it help you with that. So that's chord track. So let's go to, and notice I haven't closed anything. I'm just pushing it in the background. If I go here, this is all of my songs that are still open in the background. So let's check this one out, and this will be the last one I'll show you. And then we can take some questions and do the giveaway. So we have here, and I'll play a little bit of this for you, kind of a little British pop kind of a thing, sort of an Adele sort of thing.
Keep on trying, but then the air gets heavy and the clouds are closing in. I can feel it coming, but it's not what I'm wanting. So you maybe, so you might.
Chorus. Remember I talked about folder tracks earlier? There's where all the drums live on this song. But see, that's a ton of drum tracks. We can just put them all in a folder. There's all the keys and effects as a folder track, and they're just tucked away. Some other drum parts here, and then there's some guitars are kind of open there. So notice though up here I have all of the individual parts of the song. This is called our arranger track. So you basically just double click and you can name it whatever, and then that just gives you the track sections. If I decided I wanted this verse to be not where it is and I wanted to move it, in any other scenario, if I wanted to do this, I would have to go to the first bar of that and go cut, 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 cut. I would have to go to the end of that section and go cut, 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 cut. And if I wanted to move it further, I would have to go to that section and cut, 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 cut. circle, move way farther down, right? Am I telling the truth? Circle, copy, or circle, drag over, pray to the audio gods that I drop it in the right spot, then take the other ones and continue your prayers.
Don't tell me you just drag that.
I grab it, and I move it, and I drop it.
Wow. That's sweet.
I can, if I decide I want to move this chorus, I can insert it over here, or I can just replace that section altogether.
Damn.
So let me undo this and go back to our original. Okay, so that's one thing, that arranger track. Again, now we're talking about, we got ideas, and it's like, what would happen if I move this around, all this kind of stuff. Now let's take it to another level. Let's just say this girl's my client, and we've done this tune. It's all laid out. She's happy. She's ready to, we're ready to print this. She's also a guitar player, and she wants like a karaoke track version of this. She tells me, I want to go at the end at this chorus, I want that to be a double chorus, and then I want to do 2 more choruses as a guitar solo. So in another scenario, I would save this as radio mix or album mix, then I would copy it, and then I would do that whole process again, right? So the story goes that at PreSonus, our software is written in Germany. The story goes that there was a customer had a problem with their stuff, and they sent it off for our software engineers to take a look at it. And the guy was working on the stuff, and he couldn't figure out what was going on wrong. And he walked away from the song finished, and he got distracted. Somebody called him or something happened, and he walked away, but he never hit stop. He didn't hit the space bar. And like 10 minutes later, the music came on again, and it kind of startled him. And what had happened was that whoever was doing this session had a different idea, and they copied everything and then went like 10 minutes down the timeline and dropped everything over there to work on an alternate version of the song that they're working on. I've done that, right? So that's where this feature I'm about to show you came from. He was like, well, if they're doing this, more people will want to do this. So what they created was what we called Scratchpad. The key for it, the hotkey is V, but you can do it here by the drop down. So if I add Scratchpad, I've got a new alternate arranger window. I can delete it if I've got everything here. And I go, hang on. Yeah, so I grab everything, right, add a scratch pad. Then, let me just do this again. If I drag it over here, there's my tune here. So now I have an alternate arrangement. And remember, she said she wanted this to be a double chorus, so I'm going to duplicate it. But then we're going to get rid of her vocals because this is a track. And then she wanted that to be a guitar solo, so we're going to get rid of the background vocals. And I hit export. If I charge $125 an hour, I just made like $15,000 this hour doing this, because this would have taken me, I mean, it wouldn't have taken me like all that much longer in another scenario, but still it would have been a lot of steps and potentially some problems. This I just did duplicate, delete, duplicate, and ready to go. And like literally she's like, why do you charge me so much? This doesn't take you any time. I was like, you're not paying me for my time, dear. You're paying me for what I know. And so Scratchpad and Arranger track, really, really, really powerful stuff. Again, these are just arranging tools. These are just ways to like get those ideas. You can play with the arrangement. You can play with an alternate arrangement, and I can keep doing scratch pad after scratch pad after scratch pad. I can just keep adding them and have all these different alternate. It keeps all of your plugins in place. Now, if you start to move tracks around, that's when you need to save this as a session and open up a whole new session, because it keeps everything in the same track order when you do scratch pads. So something to consider when you're working with that. So that's everything that I wanted to show you. Well, I'll do one more thing. You ever get stuck being at the limit of the undo in as far as what you could do? Let me go back to this thing that we recorded here together. So Studio One has unlimited undo. As long as I must have saved this, but oh no, it's still taking off those nodes. As long as you don't save it and close it, or wherever you start from, if you don't close it, it'll go back from. This is me putting in the drum track note by note. I just deleted everything we recorded earlier, but I mean, there are other applications that only let you do so many levels of undo. We can do it millions of times. I mean, God forbid that you would need to do undo for millions. You made a million mistakes. You should probably do something else for a living. So that's it. I hope you guys got something out of this. Thank you so much for all the folks here for hosting us, and thank you all for coming. Again, I hope you got something out of this, and thank you for everyone watching online, and appreciate you guys tuning in as well. Thanks a lot.